Hello everyone, my name is Jocelyn, you may call me Joy, and today's video is about racism in D&D, which, disclaimer, this is not about racist people who play D&D, although obviously some people who play D&D are problematic, toxic, poisonous people, and they should be avoided at all costs. And also, I want to reiterate what I've said about Dungeons and Dragons in the past, is that it's a wholesome, lovely pastime that, is just wonderful for making friends and hanging out and socializing and problem solving and all that great stuff. But what I want to talk about is how confronting racism within the game's narrative itself can actually be kind of useful and good and positive. This is not me saying yay racism or anything like that, but it is just to talk about a couple of experiences that I've had with the game and see that here is something that can be taken from like real life kind of art imitating life kind of thing and making it into something relatable and understandable, and also adding depth to characterization and narrative. Obviously, from my perspective as a white Caucasian person, I have not experienced the negative effects of racism towards me, personally. So this is, like I said, just going to be about what happens in-game itself. And I think with some genuine willingness to be open and not confrontational, and willing to tackle more darker subjects, there is a benefit that can be had. So what I would like to do is, first of all, explain, if you don't already know about Dungeons and Dragons, is that each character, playable and non-playable, belongs to a particular race. And you've got like humans, halflings, elves, dwarves, orcs, goblins, etc. Like, sort of like akin to species, but then there is also interbreeding allowed between, and like possible between certain races. You end up getting half elves and half orcs, which are also half humans. And these races are sort of halfway between a mechanical way of separating certain people's characters. Basically, each race has its own set of traits and advantages. So certain races have dark vision, where they can see in the dark not very well, but they can see, about 60 feet in black and white in the dark, whereas other races cannot see in dark at all. It's that kind of like little bits about a character that make them more unique, separated from the other characters. Oh, and there is also a more narrative kind of perspective to it, but I'll get into that in more detail. So certain races are seen as less favourable than others. Orcs and goblins are often antagonists to battle, and this comes from more of a Lord of the Rings tradition among fantasy genre in general, where, like in Lord of the Rings, the orcs were created evil. To counter this, Wizards of the Coast, the makers, allow for players to be orcs and goblins, and also allows for characters of those races to have pretty much any alignment that you want or the Dungeon Master wants. But certain stereotypes still persist, and that brings me to my first story. My character was a drow rogue assassin from the Underdark, a shady place, quite literally and figuratively. Among its inhabitants are the drow. In the player's handbook itself, it describes the drow as descended from an earlier subrace of elves. The drow were banished from the surface world for following the goddess Lolth down a path of evil. Now they have built their own civilization in the depths of the Underdark, patterned after the way of Lolth. Also called dark elves, the drow have skin that resembles charcoal or obsidian, as well as stark white or pale yellow hair. They commonly have very pale eyes, so pale as to be mistaken for white, in shades of lilac, silver, pink, red, and blue. They tend to be smaller and thinner than most elves. This characterization is not charitable, especially when you pair it with a bit more backstory about the drow. Were it not for one renowned exception, the race of drow would be universally reviled. To most, they are a race of demon-worshipping marauders dwelling in the subterranean depths of the Underdark, emerging only on the blackest nights to pillage and slaughter the surface dwellers they despise. Their society is depraved and preoccupied with the favour of Lolth, their spider goddess, who sanctions murder and the extermination of entire families as noble houses vie for position. Drow grow up believing that surface-dwelling races are inferior, worthless except as slaves. Drow who develop a conscience or find it necessary to cooperate with members of other races find it hard to overcome that prejudice, especially when they are so often on the receiving end of hatred. So you can see from that passage alone, from material directly from the handbook itself, there is the great potential there for racism. And again, I want to kind of explain that this is not necessarily a bad thing in terms of storytelling, but it is also very easy to fall into common tropes and stereotypes about races, which should probably be countered. So, towards the end of this campaign, my drow character, currently known as Sardar Naim, and the group were travelling through the Underdark, and ahead of us we discovered a group of drow. So what happened next was the orc barbarian of our party served as a distraction by making a lot of loud noise over here sort of thing, whilst the rest of the party was set to hide. However, a couple of other members of the party, the barbarians, yes, part bard, part barbarian, rushed at the drow mages, and this basically set off the party attacking the drow and the drow retaliating with lightning bolts and a spell called Cloud Kill, which is a deadly cloud. Myself, I was not particularly happy with this sudden and unprovoked attack against this group of other members of my race. And we had attacked other groups of drow before, but only when directly confronted. So this felt different to me as a drow. So here's where the story gets kind of interesting. I leapt out of my hiding place and convinced the drow to give me refuge. And I lied and I told them that the party that I've actually been traveling with, I told them that I was hiding from them, and you know, I've been trying to avoid this quest party for a while. I handed a healing potion to one of the injured mages as almost like a bribe, whilst the other drow and the party continued fighting each other. One of the party members used a shatter spell, which, injured everyone on the drow side, including myself, so it kind of made my story look a bit more believable. A guard got sliced up, some mages exploded, like spells are popping here. And at some point, I think one of the party members used a spell called Darkness, which just envelops the entire area in darkness. No one can see through it, not even with dark vision. And as the remaining drow sort of ran off and dissipated, I persuaded the one that I had given a potion to run away and hide with me, because I'm like, she's the only one I can trust. And she, by that point, well, let's just say that the potion I gave her was not a potion of healing, as I had told her. It was, in fact, a love potion that I had acquired at the beginning of the campaign, and everyone had pretty much forgotten about. So she was currently infatuated with my character, and I persuaded her that I'm actually desperately in love with her and we need to run away from this party of murder hobos. So I let her lead me to the Drow city. I romance her a bit, so, I'm so happy that we've met, even under this horrible circumstances. I'm glad you're safe, all that stuff. She's not feeling any better, by the way. So this is perfect for me, and I sort of let her believe, like, look, I will go get help with the party. I'll get some more like guards and everyone to stop this party of drow killers, and you just stay here and rest, dear, because I know that the potion only has an hour before it wears off. So I make my escape. I grab a noblewoman's dress from like some back garden of somewhere, and I return to the party to continue the original quest under the guise of my new identity, because Sardar9 had to go. And this was also already baked into my character, that this was a master of disguise. And this guise needs a new identity now under the name Terra Ibel. Yeah, I'm good with names. And I actually confronted the party about that. I argued with them and, like, in character, about their reckless actions, and warned them that, like, first of all, now there's an entire city of drow baying for their blood. So we had to continue our journey above ground, but also that I wasn't very happy about the unprovoked attack against, like, members of my race. Like, that's not cool, guys, to say the least. So this one act of racism became a significant plot point for the story, changed my character and character arc completely, and set us on a slightly different, more treacherous path above ground rather than through the Underdark. And that is the kind of thing that I'm trying to explain with these stories, is how racism happens and how it can be used as a narrative point, as a, growth point. This next story kind of illustrates that even better, because this time I'm not the one who's being wronged. So, different campaign altogether. My character, this is a halfling monk called Kess Heathfield, and in the first proper battle of the campaign, against a group of goblins, the DM kind of accidentally overpowered them, and all of the party characters, including me, but except one other, were killed. So, and this all happened in the second session, and I was rather excited to be playing a monk for the first time, so I wasn't happy with my DM, but we all had to roll up new characters anyway. Fine. A couple of years passed, and I still wanted to play this character, because I'd still yet not had a proper chance at playing as a monk. And I resurrected him for a different campaign with a different group, but with the same backstory. And also, this couple of sessions also served as backstory. What I mean by that is killed by goblins, resurrected in-game, as far as my character is aware, literally just wakes up in a coffin, and now has a very deep-rooted hatred for goblins. The DM for this campaign, who was not entirely completely aware of all of this, made the second major NPC that we encountered a goblin merchant, to whom my character instantly takes a dislike and mistrusts completely. So, to be fair to my character, this goblin was trying to make some shady deals. Okay. One of the other players decided to ship these two, Kess and the goblin Spark. And it basically became a running gag amongst all of us players. So Spark keeps popping up at various points throughout the campaign to offer to sell various trinkets and make certain deals to help us out of sticky situations, teasing my character by communicating telepathically with him to basically just wind him up. And, you know, the DM doing this and myself, we are completely aware of how, like, this plays. This is not non-consensual at all. This is all built in character, and it's all pretty funny. We discovered along the way, actually, that Spark seemed to be a powerful wizard, very powerful, very, like, way over-leveled compared to the rest of us, with certain attributes above what he looks like he would have, like super strength and stuff like that. And he actually gave us some key information about the story, the history of the dragons and the gods, and as well as being a keeper of a very important dragon skull, which could be used in a dragon resurrection spell that we are trying to prevent. This relationship between Kess and Spark is continuously tense, as the rest of the group kind of heavily relies on Spark for all of these things, and my character is grappling with his trust issues from the backstory. And this prompted Spark to give the party a bead bracelet that glows just before he appears, because he can teleport, or communicates telepathically. This is to try and build some trust. Towards the end of the campaign, we come across a city in which is an armoured figure preaching to a crowd about ending the blight that is goblin kind. Yeah, this is pretty much based on every homophobic hate preacher you've seen. But this still pricks up Kess's ears. I can't ignore the fact that that's something that he would do. And the rest of the party tries to tell the hate preacher, look, just do one. But as all of this bigotry is backed by this belief in the new religion that's been established in the region, the guards threatened us, so we had to leave, and Kess was basically taken in by the anti-goblin rhetoric through a series of unfortunate dice rolls. Trying to break the spell of the racism here, like get him to think that, and it's, of course I rolled really fucking terribly. And a little further into the city, we discovered the Temple of the Lady, which was a part of the old pantheon of gods that's been sort of trying to be overthrown by the new religion and the new ruler. And we managed to get inside, and we reunite with a few NPCs in this town who come with us inside, and we reunite with a few more like important NPCs when we're in there. We discover from one of these NPCs, who is an assassin who actually tried to kill another party member, who we actually previously thought was dead after that encounter, that the Assassin Guild leader is none other than Spark. Insert, I told you that goblin was up to no good, here. However, he does help us, or rather, he does all of the rescuing for us when it comes to helping our very first NPC that we ever encountered, that we feel we have sort of a debt of gratitude towards. And he does this at the expense of much of his magical power. Which sort of does chip away a little bit at the wall around Kess's belief system about goblins, because it's an endearing act. Now, this group, this story, has concluded its sort of arc. The group has now stopped playing that particular campaign for a while, so who knows where it will actually lead. But even I, at this point, am trying to lead Kess away from the path of racism in a kind of majestic character arc of growth. These story examples are basically my way of saying this is how racism can really be utilised well for storytelling if it is handled properly, and also as long as everyone realises and understands completely and fully that what happens in game, what happens with all the characters, is no way a reflection of the players themselves. It just wouldn't work if someone was playing a racist character and they were really racist, because they would be such a horrible person to game with. And in that way, it's almost making fun out of racists and racism. And that is my conclusion here, is that with the right group of people, you can have a compelling story that tackles something quite difficult, like racism, and still have it be a positive experience for everyone. So until next time, drow rogues are valid, goblins are valid, non-binary is valid. God damn it. Basically set off the party attacking the drow and fuck off. This like group of fuck off. I leapt out of my hiding place. Shut up! Oh shit. Fuck. Is none other than Spark. For really fuck off. That is fucking sirens and fucking message tones and fucking fuck off!